Jeremy here on Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. What I have today, guys, is a ranking of the albums video. I haven't done one of these in a while and wanted to tackle another band. And I love thrash metal. I wanted to tackle one of their classic bands. So I decided to go with Anthrax, formed from New York City in 1981 from guitarist Scott Ian and bassist Dan Liker. They were definitely one of the big four, of course, everyone knows, along with Slayer, Megadeth, and Metallica. Honestly, I'm not the biggest Anthrax fan. That's why I didn't really was kind of hesitant on tackling their discography. But it was a band I'm familiar with their discography pretty well, so it was an easier one for me to kind of tackle and go through. I love their first batch of albums, and I love their last couple albums when they kind of went back to the straight up thrash sound. But the gap in the middle, they kind of lost me, and I kind of checked out. And then I kind of got back into them much later in their career. But you'll kind of see where the albums fall, and I'll kind of explain as I go through. So let's jump right in, guys. 11 studio albums in total. At number 11, I went with Stomp 442. This was released in '95. It's their 7th studio album. This is the one that has John Bush on vocals still, and from known from Armored Saint. The weakest in their discography, in my opinion. Not too many good songs in this one. Doesn't really sound like a thrash album at all. Definitely a lot more groove elements in there and alternative kind of elements. And I wanted, when I want Anthrax, I want Anthrax to be just straight up thrash, grimy, good time, thrash metal. And this just didn't hit the mark for me. And easily the worst album by them, in my opinion. At number 10, I went with Volume 8, The Threat Is Real. Another one, another album with John Bush. I do feel bad because John Bush is a great vocalist. I love Armored Saint. But some of these albums he was on just didn't really connect, and they could have been a lot better albums, and they should have made them more thrashy. This is another one that didn't really connect with me much at all. Inside Out was a decent track. Catharsis was okay, but nothing really too outstanding on this album. Definitely more of a dud in their discography, and definitely one I put at the bottom. And next I have, might be surprising to some people, State of Euphoria number 9, their 4th studio album. A lot of people probably have this pretty high in their ranking. I know a lot of people love this album. But after Among the Living, this was a severe drop in quality. Definitely a kind of almost a disappointment in their discography. After such a masterful record, to go down to this album, in my opinion, was just a severe step down. And it's one that hasn't really held well over the years. Like when you go back to it, it just doesn't sound quite as good. And it didn't really hold up over the years, in my opinion. So it is what it is. It's just one I don't go back to, guys. I'm sorry. But I had to make my list at number 9. At number 8, I went with We've Come For You All, another album with, the last one with John Bush on vocals. Pretty cool artwork on this one. Has a comic book feel. Really like the artwork on that one. This one is kind of it had more of a Armored Saint kind of feel to it. Didn't really sound super thrashy. More of a traditional metal kind of sound with kind of thrash elements underneath. Some decent tunes on this one though. Black Dahlia was a good one. This one had Roger Daltrey guesting on it and Dimebag Darrell from Pantera, which was really cool. But overall, the songs are just decent. Superhero was good. Refused to Be Denied, another decent track. Kind of half and half with this album. Half is really solid, and the other half is just kind of eh. So that's why it's a little bit lower on my list. And number 7, I think it is, The Sound of White Noise. This is the 6th studio album, and it's got the first album that had John Bush on vocals. Unfortunately, all of John Bush's records he was on kind of fell to the bottom part of the list. But pretty solid album. Again, this one's not super in the thrash metal world. That's why it's more to the bottom half of the list. When I want to listen to Anthrax, I want thrash metal. Just balls out riffs and Scott Ian riffs and swing vocals and those aggressive vocals. I want speed and aggression. And this is another one that's just kind of one of those albums they put out in the '90s that were just more alternative and kind of groove metal laden. They were trying to follow in the trends. And I think that's kind of why I fell off these guys. When the '90s hit, they kind of went off their thrash metal path and just took a different path and it just didn't really connect with me, and I just missed their old stuff and kind of fell off with the band, unfortunately. Next one here, I got the fifth studio album, Persistence of Time. This is released in 1990. This is number 6. Pretty cool album, a little bit long. Could be a little bit more editing would have been done on this one, would have been good. But overall, pretty solid album. The song Time, Blood, Gridlock was good. In My Mind was decent. Some pretty good tunes on this one. Even the instrumental, Intro to Reality was pretty cool. I like that one as well. Not an album I go back to quite as much in their discography. I don't even have it on CD as of yet, but this is one I would like to pick up on hard copy. But it's got some decent tracks, a little bit longer, just a little bit bloated in my opinion. A little bit editing could have been used. The production on this one's a little thin. Some of the guitars sound a little thin to me. But overall, a decent album. Number 5, we have one of their newer albums from 2011, Worship Music of Joey Belladonna. And really cool album. I like this one. Love the artwork. And this is kind of where I picked up in the band again. I heard a couple singles that came off on this on YouTube, and I went out to pick it up because I'm like, wow, Anthrax is finally back. They're back to their old thrashy sound, and I just had to pick it up. Some great tunes on this one. The Worship instrumental is pretty cool opener. Earth on Hell, I'm Alive, The Devil You Know. Some really good tunes on this one. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, they went back to their classic thrash sound, got away from that groove, alternative sound from the 90s, which I think just didn't suit the band at all personally. And yeah, I was happy to have them back. At number 4, I went with For All King in 2016. Damn, it's been 8 years they haven't put out a record. That's crazy. They're due for an album anytime now. But another really strong record from these guys. Some really good tunes. Again, just a straight up thrash metal band. They finally stripped away all that the groove and alternative elements. Impaled, You Gotta Believe. The title track is really good. Breathing Lightning was a single, was really good too. Really good tunes on this one. I like it top to bottom. Really solid album. A little bit on the long side, but not doesn't feel long. The songs go by really quickly, and a really solid album. And my top 3 have always been my top 3 for Anthrax. Is pretty much the first 3 albums. Placing them in order is pretty tough because I like them kind of for different reasons, but I just kind of put them in an order. Number 3, I went with Spreading the Disease. Always loved this album cover, really cool album cover. And some really good tracks on this one. Madhouse, Lone Justice, The Enemy, Medusa. Just some really cool tracks on this one. A lot of people will cite this as their favorite Anthrax album. I know it's a very popular album with the fan base. But for me, I don't listen to it quite as much as the other 2 albums in my number 1 and 2 slot. But it's right up there in terms of quality. Really killer album. Really classic thrash album. And number 2, I went with Fistful of Metal, the debut. This album is super underrated in my opinion. Sometimes this is my number 1. I debated on putting it number 1 as my number 1 album, but I listened to the other album a little bit more. That's why I put it a little bit lower. And yep, this is the only album that had Neil Turbin on vocals. But when you listen to this album, it's just a pure thrash banger. Like, it just has that thrashy vibe to it. Everything you want a thrash metal album to be, this has it. And the album cover is the artwork's kind of stupid in a way, but it's very recognizable. But a really good album. Well, like I said, the only one with John Turbin on vocals, but a really good album. Love this album, classic. And the number 1, guys, it had to be no other than Among the Living. Always been my favorite Anthrax album. It's an all-time classic thrash anthem. Album, I should say, and it's just a masterpiece. It's their opus, in my opinion. Their Ride the Lightning, their Rust in Peace, their Rain in Blood. If it was, this is their masterpiece in their discography. And with songs like I Am the Law, Among the Living, title track, Hot in the Mosh, Indians, One World, top to bottom, it's a masterpiece. Every song's a banger. And just love this album. Always been my favorite Anthrax album. So let me know down below what your rating would be for Anthrax from 1 to 11. And I know some of mine are a little bit controversial, having some a little bit low, some a little high. But this is how I rank them based on my my taste and my overall appeal to the band. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know down below what band I should do next.